perfect.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of Georgian Bay for November 12th, 2021. My name is Tom Hill, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. And this morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for 2 consents and 1 minor variance application. There's also 1 application not subject to a public meeting to consider a minor variance application. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the Secretary Treasurer will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any information that is relevant. The Secretary Treasurer will summarize any correspondence on file, and from there, the applicant may make a brief presentation if they so choose. And the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to pass, defeat, or defer the decision of the applicants. The consent applications being considered this morning are B21-09 for 7 Joseph Street in Mactier and B21-11 for 401 Corville Road in Port Severn. The minor variance application being considered this morning is A21-28 for 17-426 Georgian Bay Shore. And the minor variance application not subject to a public meeting is A21-24 for 2 Island 1860. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed. And I would ask the Secretary, I would ask first of all if I could have a motion to adopt today's agenda.
I would so move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Member Matthews and seconded by Member Jarvis. Motion is carried. And now to our Secretary Treasurer for a notice of applications.
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may also have been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Our first application this morning is B21-09 for 7 Joseph Street in Mactier. And who do we have from the Planning Department representing this application? I think I see lips moving, but no sounds. So
there you go.
All right.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you. You're muted before. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting. And do we have anyone representing the applicant that is signed into the meeting? No, I see no one. So Farrell, to the planner, please proceed.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kursimran Seni, and I'm a planner with Dale Richards and Associates. I will be speaking to 2 severance applications today, and I have a presentation prepared. I'm going to share my screen in a minute. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
So the first severance application today the staff received was for a property municipally addressed as 7 Joseph Street in the community of Macatier. And the applicant is William Cooper. And the purpose of the application is a severance for lot addition to an abutting property, and that is 13 Joseph Street. And the application will not result in creation of a new lot. Our recommendation is that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment grant approval to the consent application subject to certain conditions. The map here shows the general location of the subject lands in the community of McAteer. Here's a close-up of the location. The subject property is located in the northwestern quadrant of the intersection of Joseph Street and Hague Street. The benefiting lands are located just north of the subject property and addressed as 13 Joseph Street. Here are some statistics on the proposed severance. The existing area of the subject lands, that is 7 Joseph, is currently approximately 0.2 hectares. The applicant is proposing to sever approximately 0.04 hectares and add it to the abutting benefiting lot, and which will have a total area of 0.14 hectares post severance. The subject lands will be left with an area of 0.16 hectares. The existing frontage of the subject lands is 41 meters, which will be reduced to 31.4 meters after the severed lands, which have a frontage of 9.6 meters, will be added to the benefiting lands. The benefiting lands will have a frontage of 26.6 meters post severance. Here's an aerial image of the proposed severance. The yellow outline represents the benefiting lands. The red shows the subject lands, and the area in blue is approximately the lands that will be severed from 7 Joseph Street and added to 13 Joseph. Here's a Google Street View of proposed severance. Again, the area that will, the approximate location of the lands to be severed has been highlighted in yellow and shown in the first figure here. So staff are recommending approval of the application because it has been considered that it is consistent with the PPS, as the application does not result in the creation of a new lot, and there are no foreseeable impacts on the surrounding development. It conforms to the district official plan, as the lands are located within the urban center, where the objective is to permit a range of compatible uses and focus growth. Also, the lots are municipally serviced, thus no expansion of services is required. The severance also conforms to the township official plan, as the lands are designated residential, and the intent of the official plan policies is to direct majority of growth into the urban centers. Residential development is a permitted use, and no change in land use is proposed through this application. The official plan, the municipal official plan also has severance policies. The official plan states that consents may be permitted for boundary adjustments, and since this application does not result in the creation of a new lot, it conforms to the applicable official plan provisions. With regards to the zoning bylaw, the severance will result in the elimination of lot frontage and certain interior yard deficiency that currently exists on the benefiting lands. I'd like to note that it appears that the benefiting lands will remain deficient in northern side yard setback. Staff are currently seeking confirmation on the location of structures on the lots to identify if there are any further deficiencies. This will be imposed as a condition of approval. Again, the staff are recommending approval with the following conditions. The one that I'd like to highlight here is that the location of the existing buildings on the subject lands and benefiting lands be confirmed to be in compliance with the township's zoning bylaw, or in alternate, that minor variants to recognize such locations are approved with all levels of appeal exhausted. The other conditions are pretty standard to what the township usually has imposes as the conditions of severance. Yep. If there are any questions now, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence on this application?
3 letters of no objection were received from Bell Canada, the District of Muskoka, and Hydro One.
Okay. It appears we have no one representing the applicant attending the meeting today. Is that correct, Marcia?
Actually, the applicant, Bill Cooper, is here. You just may not be able to see him on your screen, but he is here in attendance. He's just muted with his video off.
Yeah, we're still, at least on my screen, sharing the screen that the planner had put up.
Okay.
Can we unshare that?
Sorry, I'm just trying to. Gerzimran, if we could just get you to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Okay.
get my screen to do that, but
You help with that, Sydney? There we go. Okay. Then welcome to the meeting, Mr. Cooper. I noticed that you are muted at the moment. Is there anything that you wish to add to the comments of the planner so far? And you're still muted,
There we
Mr.
go.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on my niece's tablet here, and I'm not quite certain if I know how to use it properly. So, yeah, here we go. You hear me now?
We can hear you now. Obviously, were you able to hear the planner provide the presentation on the application?
Yeah, yes, I did. Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish to add to those comments?
No, it all sounds like things seem to be in line there with the hydro and Bell. And anybody else has any concerns with the application?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'll now close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really don't have any questions. It seems pretty straightforward, and with condition that the side yard setback is met, I'm satisfied with this application.
Thank you. Member Demkew.
Thank you, Chair Hill. Yes, I'm familiar with this property and the situation, so have absolutely no concerns with it.
Okay, Member Caddo.
Thanks, Chair Hill. Yes, no worries here. I approve this application.
Member Jarvis.
A couple of questions, of course. Are both properties owned by the same family, same people?
No, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
so, I'm sorry.
No, the properties have we have purchased the property off the neighbor, and that was the conditions that we had applied to give her some more land. The land that septic that we purchased was like 3 feet away from her door, so she had some concerns with that. So we made arrangements to do this the severance for her.
Oh, okay. No, good neighborly gesture. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
Okay, Member Ferguson.
I echo the thoughts of the other committee members, where I have no problem with this application.
Thank you. Member Coutier.
I have nothing else to add to this conversation, and I will not hesitate to vote in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a motion moved by Member Ferguson, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval for the consent application B21-09 as advertised, subject to the following conditions. A, that municipal taxes be paid in full at the date of request of issuance of the consent application or consent certificate. That location of the existing buildings on the subject lands and benefiting lands be confirmed to be in compliance with the township's zoning bylaw, or in the alternative, that minor variances to recognize such locations are approved with all levels of appeal exhausted. A reference plan for the consent shall be prepared and duly registered by an Ontario land surveyor, and that one copy filed with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. A draft copy of the reference plan shall be provided to the Secretary Treasurer for review and approval prior to registration on title. A copy of the electronic registration in preparation draft deed for the lot addition, if applicable, shall be provided to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee together with a signed acknowledgement and direction so that the consent certificate may be issued. And that the severed lands shall merge with and not be separately conveyable from the property municipally known as 13 Joseph Street. The owner's solicitor shall take all necessary steps to ensure that the parcels merge under the Planning Act. And finally, that all fees and distributions, legal, engineering, and planning, if any, occurred by the township with respect to this application shall be paid for by the owner. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. And we will now address our next application, which is B21-11 for 401 Corryville Road. And to the planner, please.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen again. So staff received a severance application for the property municipally addressed as 401 Corryville Road in Port Severn. The applicant is Timothy and Brenda Bunker, and their agent is Krista Lebman of Soloway Wright LLP. The purpose of the application is to sever the lands to establish an easement for telecommunications infrastructure. The application will not result in the creation of a new lot. It is the staff's recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment grant approval to the consent application, subject to certain conditions. The slide here shows the location of subject lands, which are located along the shoreline of Little Lake. Here is a close-up of the subject lands and the approximate location of the portion on which easement is being requested. Again, the area of the subject land is approximately 0.8 hectares and the frontage is 27.78 meters along the shoreline. I'd like to note that there is an existing Hydro One easement on the subject lands, and Bell Canada's easement request is also on the same lands. The figure here shows the proposed location of the easement as submitted by the applicant. Here's an aerial image of the subject lands. So staff are recommending approval of the application as it has been reviewed and it is consistent with the PPS, as the proposed easement creation does not represent site alteration or development and facilitates continuous access to telecommunication equipment. It conforms to the district official plan as the subject lands are adjacent to the subject lands are adjacent to a provincially significant wetland, but the proposed application does not lead to creation of a new lot or alteration of the subject lands. Therefore, the provision of utility services and telecommunication infrastructure is generally supported by the district official plan. The proposal also confirms to the municipal official plan as the official plan permits telephone companies to use land for public services within the provisions of the zoning bylaw. Subject lands are adjacent to type 2 fish habitat, but the OP policies do not require an impact assessment for these habitats. Staff would like to note here that given the location of the subject lands adjacent to a provincially significant wetland, the applicant will be required to consult with the township or the ministry to determine if an environmental impact assessment is required prior to undertaking any development. With regards to the zoning bylaw, an easement for telecommunication purposes is permitted by the zoning bylaw. Staff note that the subject lands are deficient in lot area and lot frontage requirements. However, through this application, no new lot is being created and no development is contemplated through the severance. As such, addressal of these deficiencies is not required at this time, and the intent of the zoning bylaw is generally satisfied. Again, staff recommend approval with the following conditions. The municipal taxes are paid and a reference plan of the consent shall be prepared. The other conditions are pretty consistent with what the town usually imposes on acceptance applications.
Thank
I can
you.
take any questions now. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence on this application?
2 letters of no objection were received from the District of Muskoka and Hydro One.
Thank you. And also, Madam Secretary, do we have any representative of the applicant in the meeting today?
The agent, Krista Lebman, is here and she does have her video up on the screen. I'm just not sure if you can see her.
Morning, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything that you would care to add, Ms. Libman?
No, Mr. Chair, I think the planner summarized the application very well. If you have any questions, of course, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, you had mentioned that you need contact with the ministry may be required because of the significant wetland located adjacent to this property. Has that been incorporated as a condition of approval?
For you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ferguson. At this time, the applicant has not proposed any development on the subject lands. As such, this condition has not been imposed, and such conditions will come into effect once development or site alteration is actually proposed by the applicant on these lands.
Thank you. Yeah, in that case, this is a very straightforward application. There's already an easement there in favor of Hydro One, and simply want to grant Bell Canada the same rights. So I'm in favor and have no objection.
Thank you. Member Kuchar.
I have no objections to this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Jarvis.
Well, I have no objections. I hope you'll indulge me. I'm very curious about what kind of Bell infrastructure would take on that kind of shape on any kind of property. I suspect the hydro easement's pretty straightforward. Why is the Bell such an awkward looking piece of easement, I guess?
It's actually the same easement that Hydro One has been granted. This is actually the registered reference plan, shows that strange shape. And for Bell, it will be lines and poles.
And why does the easement not go to the very back of the property? It seems to cut off before the end of the property line.
Yes, I'm noticing that myself today, and I don't have an answer for that, unfortunately. I think it was because this was the same easement that Hydro One requested, and Bell is piggybacking on that approval.
To our planner then, Ms. Sani, is it possible there's a piece of land there that the property owner still in effect has not provided as easement to either Hydro or Bell? Right at the back of the property there.
For you, Mr. Chair, the location of the easement is as provided by the applicant in the application, so I'm not sure on the rights of the property owner on the back end of the land.
Okay, well, I mean, it's neither here nor there for us. I think the owner might want to review that, but anyway, I'm happy with things otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Demkew.
Thank you, Chair Hill. My only question was going to be, is the easement exactly the same as the Bell one? So that's been satisfied. I'm okay with this.
Member Caddo.
Yeah, no objections here. I support it.
Thank you. And Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My 2 questions were answered by Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Jarvis, so nothing further.
Okay. Thank you. I'll read the motion. It is moved by Member Kuchar, seconded by Member Demkew. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to the consent application B21-11 as advertised, subject to the following conditions. A, the municipal taxes are paid to date. B, a reference plan of the consent shall be prepared and duly registered by an Ontario land surveyor and one copy filed with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. A draft copy of the reference plan shall be provided to the Secretary Treasurer for the review and approval prior to registration on title, if applicable. C, a copy of the electronic registration in preparation draft deed for the easement, if applicable, shall be provided to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee, together with a signed acknowledgement and direction so that the consent certificate may be issued. And D, that all fees and disbursements, legal, engineering, or planning, if any, incurred by the township with respect to this application shall be paid for by the owner. And E, the conditions set out herein shall be completed within 1 year of the date of decision of the committee. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very well. We'll prepare for our next application. If we have any members of the public or the applicant that wish to join the meeting. And our next minor variance application for today is A21-28 for 17426 Georgian Bay Shore. To the planner, please.
Good morning, members of the committee. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So I'm just going to share my screen. And it should be up. So if I could get a thumbs up from everybody. Great. So we did receive application A21-28. The applicant is Christine Combe and her agent is Ryan Allen of Planscape Inc. The address is 17426 Georgian Bay Shores. The property is located within the Palisade Bay East Bone Island coastal community. The intent of this variance is to facilitate the construction of a storage building and a deck, which will reduce the front yard setback, setback from water, and interior side yard setback for both the proposed storage building and for the deck. And it will also reduce the minimum building separation from the proposed storage building and the existing sauna. It is recommended that this variance be approved subject to the recommended conditions. Great. So here is a location map of the subject property. So it is east of Bone Island within the Palisade Bay coastal community. And an overview of the variances that are being requested. So they are looking to reduce the minimum interior side lot line for the storage building. So what is permitted is 5 meters. They're proposing a 2.4 meter setback, which is a difference of 2.6 meters. They're looking to reduce the minimum front yard setback and setback from water bodies for the proposed storage building. So both of those provisions require a 20 meter setback. A 14.3 meter setback is being proposed, which is a difference of 5.7 meters. They're also looking to reduce the minimum building separation between the storage building and the sauna. So 5 meters is what's permitted in the zoning bylaw. 0.9 meters is being requested, which is a difference of 4.1 meters. They're looking to reduce the minimum interior side lot line for the proposed deck. So again, 5 meters is permitted, 1.2 meters is being proposed, which is a difference of 3.8 meters. And then lastly, reducing the minimum front yard setback and setback from water bodies for the proposed deck, where 20 meters is permitted, 13.2 meters is being requested, which is a difference of 6.8 meters. So here is the plan of survey of the property. So there's an existing sauna right here. If you can see my mouse, it is on the screen. The proposed storage building will be just behind that sauna, and the deck is between the sauna and the storage building. There's also a wooden shed and deck further to the east on this property that the applicant has indicated that will be removed. And just to note that all along here is the shoreline of Georgian Bay. I do have a close-up image that is a little tough to see on that survey. So again, we can see the wooden sauna the proposed deck to the rear of it to the east, as well as the proposed storage building. And then just at the edge of this image, you can see the, it's approximately 5.8 square meters, a wooden shed and deck that, again, they've indicated that they will remove from the property. So we are recommending approval of this application. So the proposed deck and storage building are located behind the existing wooden sauna. So they're not further reducing the setback from the high water mark, so from the front lot line or from the shoreline. The proposed deck and sauna are located above the regulatory flood elevation of 178.3. The existing sauna that this deck and storage building will be somewhat attached to has a very similar interior side yard setback, and the proposed storage building and deck, they're not going to impact the visual aesthetics of the shoreline. As the existing shed, as mentioned, that the applicant will remove, the proposed development will only result in an increase of the lot coverage by 0.1%. So we are of the opinion that the proposed minor variance application conforms and does not conflict with any of the applicable planning policy documents, and that it does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. In terms of recommended conditions, they are fairly standard. We do ask that the indicated 5.8 square meter shed with the attached deck be removed as indicated by the applicant. They be subject to site plan, that the variance is granted and fixed to the subject site plan that was provided with the application, and that approval expire within 3 years, and that municipal taxes are paid to date. So that concludes this presentation. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reed. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence on this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Okay. And if we're finished with that presentation, perhaps we could stop the screen sharing. Okay, there we are. And I noticed that we have Mr. Combe in attendance at the meeting today. Mr. Combe, do you have any comments that you'd like to add to what the planner provided so far?
Thank you for hearing our application today. My name is David Combe. We're very happy cottagers in the Honey Harbor area. We've been so since 1972. I thought I'd just briefly discuss kind of what we're up to. We have an existing sauna that is a big part of our cottage experience there, but I'm afraid it has been overrun with fishing rods and life jackets and inner tubes and water skis and a plethora amount of stuff. And so I had an architect friend come to the cottage and discuss what we might do about this. And the idea was to put an addition on the sauna so that we don't have more outbuildings growing on the property. And we do have another shed there that we built in 1972 that has really come to the end of its life. It's starting to find its way back to the ground. So we would like to kind of update our facilities and combine everything and then remove that other shed and hopefully, have the appearance of the property improved in the process. We are certainly respect the planning process. We've feel like we've done it in the proper way, and that's what brings us before you today. I know there is some conditions about site plan approval. My only comment might be on that between the survey and hiring a planner and now the committee of adjustment fee, the budget of the proposed shed is increased considerably. And so anything that might provide relief in that regard would be appreciated. That's all I'm going to say on that point. And I do have to find a home for the stuff that's in the other shed. And so if I could have some time to remove that shed, that would be appreciated as well. There is power in that shed, and to get the power removed by electrician is a very small job and kind of difficult to find contractors right now for such little work. So it'll take a little time for me to get that down. That's my only point. And so I would appreciate your consideration today and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Com, and seeing no other members of the public in attendance, I'll close the public.
Mr. Chair, we do have the applicant's agent present, Ryan Allen, and I believe he has a presentation he wants to show the committee.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Please proceed, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Ryan Allen. I am a professional planning consultant assisting the Com family with their minor variance application today. My address is 104 Kimberly Avenue, Bracebridge, P1L1Z8. I do have a brief presentation that I would like to share with you. If I can find it on my screen. I apologize, my screen sharing is not proceeding as planned. Here we go. So it was mentioned that the subject property is located at 17426 Georgian Bay. The property is opposite Bone Island. It is a water access property, but is located on the mainland. Here's a closer look at the property. Approximately 156 meters of frontage and just under half a hectare of lot area. As was explained, the application before you is related to the construction of a storage building of approximately 120 square feet and a deck that will be attached to the existing sauna. The variants that have been proposed have already been discussed, so I won't spend any additional time on that. The site plan survey has shown the existing development on the property, which includes a sleeping cabin on the lower end, dwelling towards the middle, a dock, a sauna, and is an existing shed. The proposed addition, storage building, and deck are located directly behind into the rear of the existing sauna building. And I would note that the existing shed that is proposed to be removed is set back closer to the lot line than the existing proposed shed to be constructed. As well, the Com family owns the neighboring lot immediately to the north. This is a view from Georgian Bay facing towards the subject property. You can see the dwelling, or at least a portion of it, and the sleeping cabin is the sauna is located behind this area of trees. Here's a closer look at the sauna building. It is it's a brown colored building that blends in nicely with the surrounding landscape. This is the location to the rear of the sauna building where the proposed deck and storage building are proposed. As you can see, there's no tree removal proposed and no site alteration will be required. Everything will be constructed on the existing grades. This is a side view of the sauna building. This is the existing shed that's proposed to be removed that Mr. Com had mentioned was constructed in the 70s and is in need of replacement. You'll be familiar with your planning framework in the official plan. Waterfront allows residential uses, including accessory structures like storage buildings. In the Palisade Bone Island waterfront community, limited to recreational water-oriented uses only. Waterfront character is important to maintain the low-density built form. Shoreline is to maintain a natural and undeveloped appearance. Setbacks from the shoreline are required to be 20 meters. However, reductions are permitted. And buildings are to be set back above the regulatory floodplain. So in terms of my planning analysis, I'd just like to present briefly that accessory buildings are permitted on this lot, including the garage addition or the storage building addition. The increased lot coverage is 0.1%. The proposed is 3.1, the maximum is 5. This indicates the low density character of the property will be maintained. The maximum coverage for accessory structures is 5%. This property proposes 0.9%, so very low lot coverage for accessory structures. The storage building is connected and directly located behind and the same width as the existing sauna. So there'll be no additional visual impact from lakeside views because the existing sauna will screen the new addition. The storage building will be set back further from the shoreline than the existing sauna building. So the setback of the sauna is not further reduced. The storage building is to be constructed on exposed bedrock. No tree removal or excavation is required. Shoreline buffer will remain in a natural state. Natural form will continue to dominate. The setback is further from the lot line than the existing shed to be removed. The storage building and deck are located above the regulatory flood elevation, so there is no flooding hazard in this case. The separation distance between the buildings is 0.9 meters, and that provides adequate access between the structures and allows for the roof lines to be joined. So it's my professional opinion that this application conforms to the township official plan, maintains the general intent of the township zoning bylaw, is minor in nature, is desirable for the appropriate use and development of the property, and represents good planning. And further to Mr. Com's note, he had raised a question about being able to keep the existing shed while the new shed is constructed, as well as the difficulties of finding a contractor. So if committee would be willing, we would request that the condition that requires the removal of the existing shed and deck be removed. We will commit to the committee to have those removed. However, we would prefer that not be made a condition of the minor variance, which has to be fulfilled before building permits can be issued. And further to Mr. Com's point about the site plan agreement, the official plan does require site plan control to be applied where there is a reduction of the 20-meter front yard setback. However, I would note that that is a blanket requirement that would apply to a 2,000 square foot addition to an existing cottage. In this case, we're constructing additions of less than 200 square feet. So I would ask the committee to consider some leniency on that request to exempt this development from a site plan agreement. But we're more than appreciative of staff's thorough review of this application and their positive recommendation. Be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Do you have anyone else that wishes to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Jarvis.
My first, I guess, questions, comments are to Aaron with regards to planning. The survey that came through, I couldn't blow up to even figure out where the what we were talking about with regards to the application. I appreciate the presentation today, so that's clarified things for me significantly. Otherwise, I would have had a huge list of questions. I commend the owner of this property for actually putting this application in. I can think of a number of properties where this type of structure would have been built with without any application coming to our planning department. So I really appreciate that. I am sympathetic to the cause with regards to a little bit of leniency with regards to the removal of the other shed and site plan control, though I do think it is required that somehow we have in there that older shed has to be removed. Though I'm curious to know if we can provide some sort of time limit on that. But firstly, Aaron, is it possible to get better survey documents clarity-wise so that we can blow them up and look at them before meetings?
Sorry, through the chair to Member Jarvis, was it the quality of the image that you couldn't see in the report?
Yeah, as soon as I blew it up, it pixelated all over the place. It was, yeah.
So the survey that was provided by the applicant. We could always try attaching it separately so that it's not included in the full document. Perhaps that could make the quality better. So I could do that in the future, as well as provide the close-up. I'm not sure if that was included in the package.
Okay.
A note for the future.
Yeah,
Thanks.
for future, that would be helpful. And also, usually when we require a survey, a high watermark indication is usually also required as part of that survey, and I don't see that on this one. I may have missed it. I see the current water line, but not a high water mark.
I'm just blowing it up myself now, and I see how pixelated it is. So I can't comment on that right now.
But is it not true that we require a high water mark on surveys when they come in?
Typically, yes, they should be included on the survey.
I mean, I don't want to impose further complications on this whole process, but for future, can we make sure we have that as part of the process? And other than that, as I said, I'm sympathetic to the cause here. And as I said, I appreciate the owner of this property coming to the planning department in the first place for this. And if there's some way we can accommodate him, I'd really appreciate that too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Caddo.
Yes, I agree with this. Member Jarvis, everything he said, I agree with. There was no high water mark on that plan, but I guess we're gonna let that go. And as far as the conditions, I'd waive those conditions for the removal of shed and the site plan control. So I approve it.
Okay, thank you, Member Caddo. And just for clarification on this application, the addition to the property is being made behind the existing dwelling that's there. So with due respect to the high water mark, I don't think it's going to come into play here. So I think everybody's comfortable with that. And with the indulgence there of our Secretary Treasurer, I think in regard to the other question that we have is in terms of a time frame for the removal of that shed. My recommendation would be that we offer a time frame of 1 year, have it out of there, gives the applicant time to get the construction finished. And as we all know, it's hard to find contractors these days. So we can discuss that as we read the application at the end. So thank you, Member Caddo. Member Demke.
Thank you, Chair Hill. I wasn't able to get out to the site, so the information from the planner and Mr. Allen and Mr. Com were really helpful to me. My only question would be, can we really, this committee waive or ask for waiving of a site control? I thought we had to have one every application, but that's just a question I don't know.
Just to answer your question, Mr. Demke, we can alter the conditions, but whether or not it's applicable in this application is something that we can discuss toward the end of once we've received other comments.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm okay with. Oh, Aaron, did you have a?
Yep, through the chair to Member Demke. So as it was mentioned, the official plan does require that development within the 20 meters from the high water mark, or from the shoreline, sorry, be subject to site plan control as well as waterfront properties. So this lot, from my understanding, was developed prior to that condition provision being in the official plan and the adoption of the site plan control bylaw, which is why we included it as a condition here. But as Chair Hill did state, the committee does have the authority to waive that condition from this variance.
Okay, that's great. That helps me understand, especially the fact that it was to do with the timing originally. So anyway, I'm okay with this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Demke. Member Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in agreement with the provision to provide additional time of up to 1 year to remove the existing storage shed. And I'm also in favor of a condition to waive the site plan agreement, but I was under the impression that it was a requirement in all applications for minor variances, but perhaps I'm wrong. Other than that, I'm in agreement and would support this application.
Thank you, Member Ferguson. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too would support some sort of time limitation on the removal of the shed, be it a year or 6 months after the new one is constructed or something of that nature. I think I would be in support of leaving site plan control on. And it's not that I don't think the Khan family will do anything untowards, but going forward, perhaps it's better protection for the community and for the township. And if it's in our requirements, I'd support keeping site plan control in.
Thank you, Member Matthews. And just again, a question for Ms. Reed in regard to the site plan control agreement. Is there a cost to the applicant for that agreement?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is a cost. I'm not sure what those fees are. I do see that Dr. Spila has his video on, so perhaps he can provide that cost overview.
Thank you, Aaron. I don't. There is a cost. I don't know what off the tip of my tongue right now. Marcia Barron can hopefully assist with that one, as she's the one who receives any of our invoices and payments. Thank you.
Okay, Marcia, can you provide us
So,
some?
yes, there is a cost to the site plan agreement. As of October 1st, the site plan agreement is $1,000 and then a $500 legal fee made out to HDR Graham.
So $1,500 is the overall cost.
Yes.
And that is obviously in addition to the cost for the minor variance application.
Yes.
And that is how much?
The minor variance application is $1,200.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And are you okay then, Member Matthews?
Well, I still think it's good protection for the township, particularly going forward.
Okay, I just want to make sure you didn't have any other further questions.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and Member Kuchar.
You forgot there's also a cost to getting a building permit. So somebody wants to do something minor, they're paying thousands of dollars in fees all told, which is unfortunate given that the same fees are paid by somebody who wants to do something quite major. I did have one question to our planners, and I'm a little bit curious. In the end of the report that we received from Mr. Allen, I believe he said the two roofs were going to be connected. It's going to end up going to be all one roof between the sun and the shed. I don't know if I understood that correctly. And if I understood that correctly, then my question, why would this not be treated as an addition as opposed to a separate shed? And I don't know how much difference that would actually make, but so it's just a question out of curiosity.
Okay.
Thank you through the chair to Member Coutier. I believe that it could be treated as an addition. They did submit an application for variance, and so we proceeded with the variance process.
The other suggestion is that we are proposing one of the conditions being the removal of the shed, the 5.8 meter shed. I'm wondering if that can be done in such a way that the building permit won't be closed until the shed is removed. In other words, it could stand while the building is taking place, and I believe we've had that in the past that one of the conditions of the building permit being closed would be the removal of an existing storage shed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is a condition that the committee could choose to apply to this application.
That seems to be a clearer solution to this than adding a timeline. That would give some great deal of flexibility to the applicant to get the work done and then remove the shed prior to getting final approval. That's a good.
Mr. Chair, that's assuming that they close the building permit, which hate to say it, but we all know that doesn't always happen.
But there are fees involved if you keep a building permit open.
Okay.
So people with building permits are given constant reminders by having to pay to keep the building permit open.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kuchar.
I believe the fee that they pay to renew that building permit is like $500, so it adds up fairly quickly.
And the reason I'm mentioning this is because they have up to 3 years to excuse me about the phone going. They have up to 3 years to apply for the building permit, and I think I would imagine in a case like this to want to get the new shed done before they tear the old shed down, because there's probably still things in it that will get stored in the new shed. So in my mind, it would just seem fair that we modify the condition to say that the existing shed will be removed before the building permit can be closed.
Okay, and just to complete the circle on that train of thought, Marcia, can you tell us what the cost of a building permit is?
I don't really know the costs of building permits. I believe they're based on the square footage, but they do have a minimum of $150, I believe. But that's all I know about building permit fees.
Okay, so it's, I think it'd be an awfully small project that would be
Yeah, it
$150.
would likely be the minimum $150, but not something that I'm able to confirm.
Okay, all right, then that's fine. We just wanted to make sure we had this whole thing in perspective. So, okay.
Mr. Chair, I think Erin had her hand up. Maybe there was something else she could add.
Thank you through the chair to member Demke. Again, we are recommending site plan control to be in as a requirement for this variance so that this lot is in conformity with the official plan. Again, it is up to the committee of whether or not to impose or to remove this condition. Through site plan, we can provide for the removal of that shed as a part of that process. Just to add that in there.
Yeah, there's yeah, so we have a couple of options on it, which tends to make a great deal of flexibility for the removal of that existing shed. I do see the benefits of the site plan control as mentioned by member Matthews. It is a part of virtually every application that we approve, and it has extensive benefits to the township going forward. So seeing that, are there any other questions or comments from the committee before we proceed? I see member Jarvis with a hand up.
Yeah, member Coots here has sparked some interest on my part and curiosity again. He mentioned that there was the possibility that this could have been proposed as an addition instead of what was brought forward. Is that something the planning department would look at when the property owner comes to them with a proposal like this? And would it be less? It would have been less expensive and less arduous for the property owner to have gone with an addition versus a separate building?
Through you, Mr. Chair, one of the approaches the planning department's now starting to take with new applications is we are strongly encouraging pre-consultations to take place to identify all potential options. This hasn't always been our business process, and it may have been picked out as a potential route to take. And I'm not familiar enough with the entire timeline of this application to comment on it or the costs associated with it, but it is something we're doing on a go-forward basis with respect to future applications. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Just follow up if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So if this had been coming as a proposed addition, what would be the difference to the owner in cost, permitting, site plan agreement, all that stuff?
For you, Mr. Chair, it would really depend on all of the specifics that were proposed at the time. Can't do all the calculations off the top of my head right now.
I see Ms. Verreau has maybe a thought on that.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Jarvis or Member Jarvis. So this application is still proposing some setbacks to requirements like the interior side yard setback. As well, there are provisions in the official plan regarding expansions to existing structures, and in the zoning bylaw, expansions to existing structures within that 20-meter setback. So most likely they would still need to go through the variance process, and we'd still be looking at these recommendations for site plan where it is a expansion proposed within that 20-meter setback.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Then if there are no further questions or comments, I would just ask one question here, Madam Secretary, having to do with the condition B of this, the motion or the resolution before us, having to do with the existing shed with attached deck to be removed. Would it be any benefit one way or the other, whether we had that as a condition of the site plan agreement, or should we just, would it be easier or more clear to have a specific timeline like 1 year?
I'm not sure the answer to that question. I think I'm going to let either Ms. Reed or Dr. Spilla answer that one for me.
Well, let me just rephrase that a little bit. If we leave the condition as is, and site plan control is applied to this application, does that site plan control then have the ability to control the end date or the time when that shed is removed?
I don't believe so, but again, I'll let Dr. Spilla answer that. I don't think there's a time frame within the site plan agreement that will have that shed to be removed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can specify the conditions for site plan. As far as typical timelines, we'll have to look into that, but we can address this through the site plan approval process, and that's administration's recommendation to follow site plan approval in consistency with our official plan.
Okay, then that makes sense, and so that allows us to leave the resolution as it's written.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Member Matthews.
Thank you. I quite favor Member Couture's suggestion that prior to the closing of the building permit, and I'm sure we can do a very simple wording on that. It sounds like site plan control maybe is a little ambiguous whether it actually would get removed within a timely time fashion.
Okay, then let's just very quickly get a feeling of the committee in general. How many of those, or for those who are interested in making this modification to the resolution that would require the shed to be removed prior to the closing of the building permit, please signify by raising your hand. Okay.
And I think you just got the wording right too.
If you remember what you said.
If you remember what you just said and put that on as part of B, you're all set.
You mean you guys don't? I haven't recorded.
We're through you, Mr. Chair. We're recording the meeting right now, so that's definitely a condition that we can apply.
Okay, very well. I think we're all on the same page with this. Then we will proceed accordingly. If there are no more questions or comments, I'll close the.
Member Ferguson, did you have something else?
Yeah, are we firm now that the site plan agreement will remain as a condition of this application?
Yes, that was the indication I got from the committee. And again, we can very quickly resolve that.
No, I'm quite in favor of it, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to be, because I wasn't quite sure whether it was definitely in or out, but I see it's in. So
it's in, and
question.
it will be read as part of the resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Jarvis, seconded by Member Ferguson. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A21-28 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 17426 Georgian Bay Shore to permit the construction of a new storage building with a front yard setback and setback from the high water mark of 14.3 meters, reduced interior side yard setback of 2.4 meters, and reduced building separation from the sauna of 0.9 meters, as well as the construction of a new deck with a front yard setback and setback from the high water mark of 13.2 meters, and an internal side yard setback of 1.2 meters with the following conditions. A, that municipal taxes are paid to date. B, that the existing 5.8 square meter shed with attached deck be removed prior to the building permit being closed. C, that a site plan control application be submitted and approved, and that a site plan agreement be executed detailing the proposed development in the manner prescribed by the applicable policies of the Township of Georgian Bay official plan as they relate to the administration of site plan control, and that approval of this variance is granted and fixed to the subject site plan extent, location, scale, and use contemplated in the application, and that the approval of this variance expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the approved structure. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you very much. And Madam Secretary, I will have that updated resolution for you at the end of the meeting. Okay. I'm just ask, we're going to, our next application is not for public meeting. It's application A21-24 for 2 Island 1860. And if I could ask our Secretary Treasurer, who do we have representing this application? Just so I don't leave anyone out.
So through Mr. Chair, we have the applicant's agent, John Jackson. We have Lauren Cameron, we have Patrick Coulter, and we have Patrick Harrington here as well.
Okay, Pat Harrington is with Ailes Barrett, the lawyer. Pat Coulter is a consultant, and the other two is John.
John Jackson is the agent, and then there's Lauren Cameron, and they're all here in the meeting now.
Okay, very good. Very well. Thank you, and welcome to the Committee Adjustment meeting for November the 12th. Our next application is A21-24 for 2 Island 1860. This is not a public meeting, but I would ask for an overview from the planner, please.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen again. And again, can I get a thumbs up that it is up on everyone's screen? Great. So today we are looking at application A21-24. The applicant is Michael McCain. His agent is John Jackson. The address is 2 Island 1860. The property is located within the Cognisheen Coastal Waterfront community. The variance being sought is to increase the maximum gross floor area to facilitate the construction of an addition to the existing dwelling. And the township recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment deny this minor variance application. Oops. There we go. So here's just a location map of the subject lands. A public meeting for this application was held on October 15th, 2021, where deferral was requested by township staff and granted by the Committee of Adjustment to review information that was provided by the applicant's team. The site was previously subject to a site-specific official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, which was brought to Planning Council in 2016. At that time, they were seeking permission to construct a covered porch addition onto the existing dwelling, which would increase the gross floor area of the dwelling. The dwelling had legal non-complying status at that time, as it was constructed in 2005. Preceding the final approval and implementation of the current official plan and zoning bylaw, which has regulations for the maximum gross floor area of a dwelling based off the size of the property within the Cognisheen community. The dwelling was constructed with a gross floor area of 395.67 square meters, where 277.6 square meters is permitted. Again, as it was constructed prior to the zoning bylaw coming into effect, it was considered legal non-complying. The site-specific official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment recognized this legal non-complying status of the dwelling and permitted the proposed covered porch addition. From this site-specific official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, it was granted, which established the maximum gross floor area of the dwelling of 449.81 square meters. Additional site-specific provisions for the porch and site were established. It was stated in the staff report for the 2016 site-specific OPA and ZBA that the expansion of the non-compliant structure had been proposed with sufficient land use controls to restrict future expansion and enlargement of the proposed covered porch and of the existing dwelling. The application we're looking at today is to further permit an addition on the dwelling, further increasing the ground floor area or the gross floor area. Again, in October, township staff requested that this application be deferred to review additional material provided by the applicant's team. So this information that was provided included 7 public comments, all of which were in support of the application, a tree report completed by John Lloyd and Associates. In this tree report, they noted that the proposed addition would just require that 1 tree be removed. They also provided a proposed addition tree plan showing on the property where the addition would be and highlighting the tree that would need to be removed. We did also receive an updated site plan with updated calculations. So just to go over those, in the original site plan, which I'll pull up in a minute, they demonstrated an existing lot coverage of 3.97%, and then with the proposed addition, the lot coverage would be 4.21%. The updated site plan did revise these lot coverage numbers. So in fact, the existing lot coverage was 3.54%, and that with the proposed addition, the lot coverage would be 3.77%. We also received a technical memorandum from FRI Ecological Services. They noted that the property is located within the regulated eastern foxsnake habitat, and that the proposed addition did not present any risk or impact to the eastern foxsnake or its habitat. They also resubmitted 2 aerial images and resubmitted the legal opinion letter from Mr. Patrick Harrington of Airden Burles. So, again, they're looking to increase the GFA of the dwelling. So 449.81 square meters is what is permitted on the lot. Currently, they're at 441.38 square meters. With the proposed addition, it's 471.1 square meters, which is a difference of 32.74. I believe, sorry, that's an error on my end. I believe it's actually a difference of just over 24. Yeah, it's a deviation of 24.29 square meters. So just apologies for that typo. The addition that's being proposed is 32.74 square meters. Here is the aerial imagery. So it just shows where the addition is being proposed on the existing cottage. Here are some site photos that were taken. So you can see from the shoreline, the cottage, and then in this bottom picture, this is the location of where the addition would be. So we are recommending denial of this application. I'm just going to briefly go over the 4 tests that the committee should be evaluating minor variance applications on. So the general intent of the official plan is test 1. It's our opinion that this application does not meet the general intent of the official plan. The official plan explicitly states that the maximum GFA for this island, so 2 Island 1860, shall be 449.81 square meters. Section A.2.2.6 of the OP does allow for minor rounding of numbers and values. In our opinion, this does not apply to the development proposal for an addition, so for a new addition, enlargement, expansion of a dwelling. As there is a specific provision for the maximum GFA in the official plan, which applies to this specific lot, we believe that an official plan amendment would be required to change this provision. Test 2 of whether it meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Again, we do not believe that this variance meets the intent of the zoning bylaw for the Township of Georgian Bay. The intent of the maximum GFA is to restrict building sizes, to balance the natural and built environment of each property and the community. Through the special provisions, there is very clear direction that's been provided in the Township zoning bylaw for a maximum GFA of 449.81 square meters. Looking at the desirability of this variance, the proposed addition does not appear to impact the visual aesthetics from the shoreline. It is set back from the shoreline and buffered by existing vegetation. Only 1 tree would be removed, And the technical memorandum noted that it did not present any risk or impact to the eastern fox-snake or its habitat. So it is our opinion that the proposed addition is desirable. And then whether this variance is considered minor. The proposed addition would result in deviation of 24.29 square meters, which would increase the GFA of the existing dwelling by approximately 5.5%. While this proposed expansion of only 5.5% is relatively small on the surface, we do have to consider the incremental change related to previous permissions that were granted on this property. So under normal circumstances, the permitted GFA for this site would be 277.6 square meters. So we are of the opinion that the proposed minor variance is not minor. So again, we are recommending that this application be denied as it does not meet the general intent of the township's official plan, does not meet the general intent of the township's zoning bylaw, and it is not minor. We do believe that an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment is more appropriate for the proposed addition. With that, I will pass it back to members of the committee. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Reed. Madam Secretary, has there been any further correspondence regarding this application than what was mentioned prior?
Since the public meeting in October, one letter of objection was received from the Cognisheen Cottagers Association.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have some representatives here from the applicant. Do any of you wish to make comments to the committee at this time? Okay, I see Mr. Harrington has raised his hand. Please proceed, Mr. Harrington.
Thank you, sir, and good morning to the members of the committee. My name is Patrick Harrington. You'll recall I gave a brief presentation the last time this was before you last month. As indicated by the staff planner, the intent of this project is to add 32.74 square meters to the existing residential building, which currently measures 441.38 square meters. So as was clarified by the planner, the actual ask in this matter is for 24.29 square meters of addition through a variance. For those who prefer the conversion, that's about 260 square feet. And as indicated through the pictures, the increase is to facilitate the addition of one room to the back of the structure. As my submission under the 4 tests, the appropriate development of the lot is not affected. That's the one point that staff has agreed in their staff report. As the plans show, this is a squaring off of an existing portion of the building that is out of view of the general public along the water, and makes sense from the point of view of the way the building is constructed on the site today. You have in the file and attached to the staff report my previous letter confirming that the Ontario Divisional Court and the Ontario Land Tribunal have repeatedly indicated that the committee does possess the independent authority to approve a minor variance, notwithstanding that that variance may exceed a prescribed limit in an official plan. And I don't believe there's a difference of opinion between my firm and Mr. Pickfield's firm on behalf of the township on that one legal point, that you do have the authority. So this isn't an application of questioning whether you can do this. It really is a question of whether you should do this. And the issue about whether you should relates to what is the starting point for your analysis. Is the starting point the current structure that exists on the island today, or is the starting point what would be permitted if the structure did not exist? In other words, you're evaluating the entire structure plus the addition that my client is currently asking for, or what the planner described as the incremental change against what would otherwise be permitted on other islands. And in my submission, your starting point in this proceeding has to be what legally exists and is permitted by the official plan and zoning bylaw today. My client applied in 2016 to legalize the existing structure. Previously, this was a structure that was built and it had legal nonconforming status. In 2016, my client applied to cover an existing porch, and as part of that process, went through an entire official plan and zoning bylaw amendment that recorded into the official plan and zoning bylaw the size of the structure as built. So this island enjoys a specific permission to have a building that is of the current size. And that must be your starting point for evaluating the variance that you have in front of you. It is the delta between what exists today and what is lawful today and what is asked for through this variance. You can't go back and start evaluating whether it should ever have been approved in the first place to be a house of this size, or what the incremental changes if you add up what was previously approved plus this has been approved. It's already in the official plan. It's already in the zoning bylaw. What we're only concerned about here is the delta. You can't go backwards. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, whether you should approve it comes down to whether you believe the official plan and zoning bylaw my client sought in 2016 was intended to forever freeze this house in its current status without further approval from Township Council. That was certainly not my client's intention in 2016. The staff report in 2016 spoke to having controls on the structure, but it didn't go so far as to say that this committee can never more approve a variance with respect to this structure. That's effectively what you'd be telling my client if you were to deny this variance on the grounds that an official plan amendment is needed. You'd basically be saying, this committee is not available to you anymore. The only way you can get another square foot of addition onto this site is if you go to council and ask for it. And by going to council, that means an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment approved by council, and then all the way up to district council for approval. That is a big expense of time and taxpayer money for what is a very minor increase to an existing structure that is lawful. There will obviously be times when an increase is proposed that goes beyond what you would deem to be the appropriate general intent and purpose of the official plan. In my submission, a 24 square meter addition of a single room onto a back of an existing cottage that is currently legal is not that bridge too far. And in my submission, this is the type of application that you have the jurisdiction to approve, and on its merits is approvable. It is minor, it maintains the general intent and purpose, it does exceed the requirements of the official plan and zoning bylaw, but the divisional court has said you can do it. And all I would ask today is that you evaluated that delta on its merits, as opposed to something that should have been valued long ago when this structure was originally approved and legalized by council. And those are my submissions today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this application?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's John Jackson here. Good morning.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Just a couple of things. Patrick touched on a number of the criteria that the committee uses under the Planning Act. I won't repeat those per se, but I'd just like to say, after Aaron's report, I think that in terms of those tests, sir, I think we're actually very close. I think that Patrick did touch on the fact this is not a greenfield where we would be subject to the parent bylaw and its provisions. It's what we're asking for in the context of what historically now is a legal structure on the property. And I think that in terms of the official plan conformity test, I do believe that the policies that we have in our planning regime are those that need to be interpreted liberally so that they make sense. I think that the contrast in the zoning bylaw, when taken from what in fact is permitted to what is proposed, isn't so fixed that we can't say that the intent of the zoning bylaw is somehow being violated. I see we agree on the desirability. Obviously, it's not going to have an adverse impact on the neighborhood. And the last test about whether it is minor, I would submit that when we have difficulty understanding the numbers mathematically, we turn to what are the impacts. And so that this particular addition is obviously not going to have any impact on any neighbors because it's not going to be seen. And we've used all of the technical professionals that we had to demonstrate that there is no impacts on any environmental feature. So when I look at these from my professional perspective, Mr. Chairman, the question is there a real advantage to go through the more comprehensive process of an official plan amendment with an accompanying zoning bylaw. And I can't see a public interest that is served by that and what the benefit would be. So those are my submissions. And I thank the committee for allowing us to speak at this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. We have Mr. Cameron, Mr. Coulter. Do either of you have anything to add to the presentation?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, please proceed.
Yes, well, Mr. Chairman, Your Worship, members of committee and council, thank you for hearing us today. As much as we appreciate the planning department's report, the emphasis seems to be primarily on the bylaw and not the legal building status. And further emphasis is on the report to council, but not really putting the emphasis on the fact that council approved everything that was submitted in the past. As we all know, COVID has changed everyone's life. And this small addition on this cottage allows for the future change in Mr. Kane's life, you know, to be able to work and still enjoy Southern Georgian Bay. The planning department recommends a denial. Their opinion is that this is not minor. The reality is, though, is we're asking for 260 square feet beyond the current approvals and have offered in the past to remove the sauna approval that came from this committee, which represents 150 square feet, which would bring then our really new increase in island GFA down to only about 110 square feet. That certainly represents a minor application and is an increase in floor area of just slightly over 2%. And I would have to think well within inside the committee's authority. So we'd like to leave today with either a strong approval, preferably, or if not, you know, then a true denial. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak and for our group. And if there are any questions, we are all available.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. And we have Mr. Cameron. Are there any additional comments you'd like to add, Mr. Cameron? I don't see.
Sorry, no, it's been covered off by my colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Madam Secretary, we did have some additional comments, which was one that was received following our last meeting. That's noted. Just before we turn this over to the committee members for questions or comments, the issue that is on the table is to do with the expansion itself. We have a recommendation to deny the application. So I don't think we're planning to make any changes to the resolution that we have. If there's any clarification that you need on anything that has been brought up during the meeting today, please go ahead. And I will start those questions with Member Caddo.
Yeah, I wasn't at last month's meeting, but I did watch it on YouTube. Last month, I would have agreed, I would have approved this application. The planning report this week was planning staff saying a denial, and not too often they're requesting a denial on all these applications we do over the years. But Mr. Harrington's presentations got my mind changed, and I find it very minor. Can't see it from the water. The neighbors are all in favor of it, and I am going to support this.
Okay, thank you, Member Caddo. Member Demkew.
Thank you, Chair Hill. At the last meeting, I was the only one that was in favor of going ahead. But the deferral has helped me look at all of the situation here. I just had a question of the planners. Was in the 2016 amendment, was it specifically stated that there will not be any addition allowed?
Okay, Ms. Reed, can you respond to that?
Thank you through the chair to member Demkew. It was not stated that further development, addition, enlargement, expansion of any sorts to the dwelling is prohibited, but it did state that the provisions in place are intended to restrict future development and enlargement of the dwelling itself.
Okay.
So there was intent to restrict future development or addition of the dwelling. And if I could also just take this opportunity to provide a bit of clarification for the sauna. All properties that are zoned shoreline residential island, shoreline residential or tourist commercial have the ability to put a sauna on the property. The sauna does not impact this application. That would be a separate structure. They're permitted to do it. What we're looking at today is whether we should be permitting an addition onto a dwelling that clearly has a maximum GFA, and that is specific to this dwelling on this property. So this sauna should not be considered, in our opinion, with this application.
Thank you. I'm still of the opinion that that this is minor in its percentage nature. I appreciate Mr. Harrington's presentation, and I do appreciate the work that the planning committee's gone into this. If it's not specifically stated that it cannot be, I would be still in favor of approving this, approving the application.
Okay. Thank you, Member Demkew. And just for further clarification, Ms. Reed, on the sauna, the 100 or so square feet of sauna, was it part of the GFA that was calculated to for that property, or is it something that's not included?
Thank you. No, it's not included in this at all. So it really is not.
Again, for clarification, if the applicant wished to put a sauna on here, does he require a minor variance, or is that something that could proceed without a variance?
So the zoning bylaw, and I'm just pulling up the section, I do have it noted here, permits a sauna in the front yard of all properties zoned shoreline residential island, or tourist commercial, as subject to a variance if it's in the front yard, to a maximum GFA of 15 square meters. As this is an unsubdivided island, the entire island is deemed to be the front lot. The entire shoreline is deemed to be the front lot line, and the entire island is within the front yard. So all development would be in the front yard. And therefore a minor variance is required based off of the zoning bylaw to permit a sauna. But it is allowed on that property, and it would be a separate structure. They've noted that they're permitted to do a sauna, which they are permitted to do a sauna. They do not have a building permit for it. It would not be added to this dwelling. If it were, it would be included in the GFA of the dwelling, which is what this specific GFA restriction is referring to. It refers to the dwelling as a whole. It does not include the other structures on the property, such as the existing sleeping cabin that they have on the property.
Okay, then that's beneficial. So the square footage that was referred to earlier related to the sauna really doesn't form part of this calculation.
No, not at all.
All right, thank you very much. Member Ferguson, any questions or comments?
Now you're on mute, Mike.
There we are. Sorry. This is probably one of the most difficult applications we've ever looked at least from my perspective. You know, we have a GFA of 449.81 square meters. And while I realize that the the variance requested is quite small and you won't see it. It is certainly, if you look at the entire big picture, it's certainly well over what is permitted in the Cognition area. And the last time that it was to straighten everything out, it did require that it went through council. So for the amendments that are required. And so I'm inclined to think it should go back that way, and I'm not in favor of approving it as a minor variance.
Okay, thank you, Member Ferguson. Member Jarvis.
I find myself in agreement with Member Ferguson's comments, but further, I think while the actual ask itself, and respectfully to Mr. Harrington's comments, is minor, the entire building needs to be looked at in its entire context, and it far exceeds, even though it's legally established as that, but it significantly exceeds what's permitted or would be permitted as a new build in the Cognition area. Environmental impact obviously is minor because the current building is taking care of any of the environmental impact that might have taken place in the first place. I find myself agreeing with the planning department's recommendations and that we deny this and that the appropriate place for this to go is to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would echo Mr. Ferguson, Mr. Jarvis's comments, and further to Ms. Reed's comments, where the intent was to restrict future development. Whilst there's not a hard stop per se, I think the general intent was we will legalize you to the size you are now, which to Mr. Jarvis's point a moment ago, far exceeds anything that would have been approved in today's world. So I would be in support of standing behind the planning department on their recommendation on this application.
Thank you, Member Matthews. Member Coutier.
I agree with my fellow committee members that this is not an easy question in front of us. And I certainly appreciate all the high quality input we have received on both sides of the argument. And I find myself agreeing and disagreeing with almost everyone, at least to some degree. Having said all that, do I think this is minor in itself? Yes, I do. I mean, we're filling in a corner of a building that is going to cost one tree and is already basically cleared for this. Though I'm quite impressed that, and excuse me for using traditional measures, this is a 350 square foot addition, and that's quite the office. But okay, that's not my decision of whether an office has to be that big or not. But I think the real issue to me when I looked at this whole thing, and yes, I've been scribbling down notes, is unfortunately summarized by, I believe it was Mr. Harrington, who said, the question is, what is the Committee of Adjustment available to the applicant given the specific zoning? And I'm not a lawyer, but if we're talking about the general intent and spirit of the official plan, I believe that the intent of the official plan as amended by council back in 2016, I believe their intent was that the Committee of Adjustment would not be available to this applicant. I think when they set the hard number of, and I understand from the official plan I'm allowed to round, if they set the hard number of 450 square meters for this property, I think their intent was that if more was to be built, it would require council approval, not the committee. And that, I believe, was the intent. I've heard some mention of the sauna. Well, we understand existing development is what, roughly 8.5 meters less than what is permitted. So if an 80 square foot sauna was to be built, they wouldn't have to come to the Committee of Adjustment for that variance, only for the location, because it would be front yard. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I'm afraid I find myself, and I've struggled with this both a month ago and now, I believe that the intent of council in 2016 was that this application, the applicant would not have be able to go to the Committee of Adjustment, that they'd have to go to council. And I think that they require an official plan amendment in order to build this. And I can't speak for council, so I don't know how that will go. But in my opinion, we as a Committee of Adjustment in this particular case do not have the power do not have the authority to override council. And I believe council intended that the development above 450 square meters would have to go back to council. So unfortunately, for some, and certainly for the applicant, I think in this case, the Committee of Adjustment actually doesn't have authority to even vote on this. So therefore, I would have to say deny.
Thank you, Member Kutsier. And I noticed that Mr. Harrington is listening intently, and believe me, we understood and heard everything that you said earlier. And this decision is not about who's got the authority to do what, but it's more about what is the right thing to do here. And it's even though we can't look backwards, I think sometimes it would have been prudent if there was an opportunity to have a pre-consultation or a pre-decision with the planning department and come up with the best route to take in order to get this resolved. I don't think there's anybody here that has any concern about the construction that's being done, but the problem that we're trying to address here is the precedence or the existence of the existing OPA that was specifically designed and the zoning bylaw amendment that was applied to this property. And I have to agree with our planning department and those other members who look at it in that setting. And hopefully the applicant here can reconsider their position and bring this matter back to council and look to them for their consideration in making an adjustment to the already adjusted OP and zoning bylaw to allow this to go forward. So having said all that, and listening to all of the presentation, I have in front of me a resolution. It was moved by Member Matthews, seconded by Member Kuchar. Be it resolved that the I'm sorry, was there somebody who wanted to add something there? No, okay. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment deny minor variance application A21-24 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 2 Island 1860 to increase the maximum gross floor area from 449.81 square meters to 474.1 square meters, as the variance is not minor in nature and does not meet the intent and purpose of the township's official plan and zoning bylaw. All those in favor?
Can I get a point of clarification?
I'm sorry, was there a question there?
Yes, I'm wondering if I can get a point of clarification. And I apologize for my ignorance on this, but I know when in council, we have to make all motions in the affirmative. And then if we want to deny, we don't vote in favor. I don't know if that rule applies to the Committee of Adjustment.
Yes, it is my understanding that if you are in agreement with denying the application, your response is positive, is yes. Yes, we deny this minor variance application. So signifying by raising your hand or answering with the word aye or yes means that you are in favor of denying the application. Is everyone clear on that? Okay. Then again, I will ask for your response. All those that are in favor of denying this application, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, we do have a majority. This application is denied. There is a 20-day appeal period following this meeting, and I would ask that you contact the Township Planning Department and discuss alternatives going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, Madam Secretary, we are back to our
Aren't we still recording?
members only. Yes, we are. The meeting is not over yet. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of our last meeting. And hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to read those minutes rather. And I have a resolution before me, moved by member Jarvis, seconded by member Caddo. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of the October 15, 2021 meeting as amended and circulated. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand.
Do I vote on this, Tom, because I wasn't at last month's meeting?
No.
Okay.
Okay. We still have a majority vote. The motion is carried and the minutes are approved. And in addition, we have another resolution resolved, moved by member Caddo, seconded by member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 11:49 a.m. until December 17th, 2021 at 10 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Don't everybody leave after we've closed the meeting, please.
Okay, we'll just, Mercy, if you could let us know when